Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger.
Welcome into Geek Therapy Radio. I am, of course, your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me this week, and even from the deepest parts of my heart for joining me each week, not just this week. And that's a good reminder to tell you all who are just tuning into KPRC 950 AM right now, Saturday night at 10 p.m., that the podcast is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Of course, we prefer the iHeartRadio app, but you can get it on any sort of podcast player. So I like to listen to a lot of podcasts on iTunes, of course, the iHeartRadio app, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, all over the place. So if you're just tuning into Geek Therapy Radio this week, look up Geek Therapy Radio in your favorite podcast player, but especially the iHeartRadio app. Okay, so those of you who are not new to the show, who have been with me for a while, you know that I have, like a broken record, brought up the issue and railed on Tesla and Elon Musk for naming their driver assistance program Autopilot. I have said since the beginning that naming their glorified cruise control Autopilot will cause a lot of misnomers, will cause a lot of people, or more people than usual, to over-rely on the system. Because you think of autopilot, you think, oh, I'll just put on autopilot and I can go to sleep. So for months, I've been on the air for a couple years now, so I guess I can say for years I've been railing that calling glorified cruise control, quote-unquote, autopilot, will actually make Tesla drivers not operate their car as safely as possible. They'll think they can read newspapers, they'll think they can take naps, and that has been demonstrated. There have been several high-profile cases of Tesla drivers dying when their Teslas slide under semi-trucks or slide into concrete barriers or whatever because they're not paying attention. Probably a factor in that is that it's because it's called autopilot. So there's been a study done. Why am I getting all this? Why am I bringing this up again? There's been a survey, and I'm reading this on Ars Technica. The survey is that autopilot name causes people to overestimate Tesla capabilities. I've been saying this for years, even before the show. Okay, so in the survey, this is the percent of drivers who considered behaviors safe while level 2 system is in operation, so autopilot. These are the activities and the behaviors that drivers considered safe while under different forms of cruise control. So, almost 50% of drivers believe that under Tesla's autopilot, it was safe to have the hands off the steering wheel, versus 20% of drivers under traffic jam assist on other vehicles. Chevy's Super Cruise, less than 30% of those drivers thought it was safe to take their hands off the steering wheel. Also, Driving Assistant Plus on whatever manufacturer that is, and ProPilot Assist was over 30%. So anything that has the name pilot or hints at autopilot on a cruise control system, those drivers of those vehicles tend to believe at a higher percentage that doing this activity is safer, when in actuality it is not. They just think it is because it's called autopilot. But what you'll see in all these activities is that Tesla drivers are head and shoulders above anyone else in terms of what percentage of them think it's safe to do these activities. So talking on a cell phone, Tesla drivers, over about 35% of Tesla drivers thought it was okay to do on Tesla Autopilot, versus, I'll just use Chevy Super Cruise, versus about 25% thought it was okay to talk on a cell phone on Chevy's Super Cruise driving assistance. Even more thought it was okay to do on Driving Assistance Plus. I don't know what manufacturer that is. So about 27% thought it was okay to talk on a cell phone on Driving Assistant Plus, versus 35%. That is about 10% more Tesla drivers thought it was safe to talk on a cell phone because of the name Autopilot. Texting. Less than 10% of drivers on all other forms of glorified cruise control, of all other forms of driver assistance, less than 10% of them think it's okay or safe to text. Tesla drivers with autopilot, almost 20% of them think it's okay to text because of the misnomer of autopilot. Watching a video or a movie on a cell phone or other device. So watching a movie on your iPad, watching a movie on your phone, whatever. Less than 5% of drivers using any other assisted driving technology, less than 5% of them said it's okay. Almost 10%. Almost twice as many Tesla drivers think it's okay to watch movies under autopilot. Taking a nap. 1%, 1 or 2% of all the other drivers using all the other types of driving assistance programs, about 1 or 2% of them think it's okay to take a nap. Almost 10% of Tesla drivers think it's okay to take a nap. Over 5, 6, 7% of Tesla drivers think it's okay to take a nap because of the name Autopilot. So that's all I'm getting at here. And there's a question I'm going to pose here as we wind up this first segment. But what I'm demonstrating here is that, and what the survey has proven, is that Tesla drivers falsely think it is safer to do dangerous activities because the name of their driving assistance program is called Autopilot, versus other driving assistance programs which basically do the same thing, if not better. There's some debate as whether Chevy Super Cruise is better than Tesla Autopilot, but it doesn't matter. Chevy Super Cruise, even those drivers, to a much less extent, think it's safe to do dangerous tasks, versus Tesla drivers far and away. Tesla drivers far and away think it's safer to do dangerous tasks because of the name Autopilot. Stop, Tesla. Elon, stop calling it Autopilot. You're going to get people killed and have gotten people killed. On that note, there have been instances of Tesla drivers being pulled over for driving while intoxicated. They put their car into this autopilot mode and it takes them home or helps them get home while they're intoxicated. Should they be driving a motor vehicle while they're intoxicated? No. Does autopilot increase the safety of an intoxicated driver driving? Yes. Am I saying it's okay to have a bunch of booze and then get in your car, in your Tesla? Absolutely not. You should go to jail and prison for that. But, food for thought, it is technically safer. What do you think about that? That's no excuse to do it, but what do you think about that? Join me for the next segment here in Geek Therapy Radio, and let's talk about it a little bit. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Do not drink and drive. Oh yeah, 3 p.m. tomorrow right here in KPRC 950 AM. I join James and Chad on What's in Tap Radio to talk about a Bluetooth controller beer can. It's crazy. Why? Why with the noise? Okay. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. I'm a robot. I'm a robot from Boston. Alright, to serious stuff. In the last segment I was saying that while it's technically safer for a drunk driver to be in a Tesla while it's on autopilot, you shouldn't do it. Nobody should do it, and the punishment should be just as severe for somebody pulled over intoxicated in a Tesla, whether or not it's under autopilot, quote-unquote, or not. Don't drive drunk. Don't attempt it in any vehicle. But that brought on a more fascinating discussion. I'm in the apartment right now. Sarah's behind me playing Nintendo, which is just fine. But we got onto this discussion. She's probably not going to join me here, but we got onto this discussion, if I can talk right, about elderly and driver's licenses. As cars become more autonomous and they have more and more driver aids like collision avoidance and all sorts of things like this, should we change our minds as to how late we allow elderly drivers to hold their driver's license? So there are 95-year-old, men and women out there who still have their driving license, who have proven to the DMV through whatever way that they are still competent as drivers. But there comes a difficult conversation in children's lives with their parents that maybe it's time that grandma or dad or mom or dad has, for their own safety and for everyone else, the public safety, should give up their driver's license. But as cars become more autonomous, should that age be pushed back, or should we change our decisions based on all these driver aids and safety aids in vehicles? So for instance, you have a parent who's getting on there, they're 80 years old, 85 years old. They're really pushing it. They're starting to have a hard time with other things. They have a few more dings or bumps on their car, and you know that it's just a matter of time before they or somebody else gets seriously hurt, if not killed, due to their increased or their decreased ability to operate a motor vehicle. If they drive a Tesla, or if you offer just a Tesla in this case, and really in the next coming 5-10 years, decade or two, as autonomy becomes more and more prevalent and cheaper, these are decisions to be made. Would you say that, okay, where otherwise we would suggest you stop driving, we know that you're in a vehicle with driver assistance, so we'll let you continue to drive. Or if the state makes that decision, what would you do? What do you think about that? So basically, my opinion on it, since this is pretty much, if you're listening to the broadcast or podcast and there's no comment section or anything like that, this is pretty one-sided. So I'll spark the conversation with my one-sided opinion on this, because I can't hear you right now as I'm talking. You can email me, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com, or go to my Facebook page, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, or on YouTube, or all the plugs, all the things. You can tell me there. But it's my opinion that if an elderly driver, and I have a feeling that a lot of you are going to agree with this, if an elderly driver is incapable of operating a fully manual vehicle, I don't mean manual transmission, but just otherwise, no driver aids, no nothing. If they are unable to operate a vehicle 100% manually without assistance from computers, then they should not be allowed to drive a vehicle with the driver aids. Is that harsh of me? Or maybe just legally speaking, should Uncle Sam make the decision that, well, if you were driving a car without collision avoidance, we would take your license away, but since you have a Tesla, we'll let you keep your license? Would you put the fate of your loved one in the hands of that technology, which has been known to be faulty, which is not without error, but it does technically make them safer? This goes back to the drunk driver discussion. Should someone get in the car, operate the vehicle autonomous or not, or driver assisted or not, drunk? Should they be allowed in the vehicle if they are elderly and can't otherwise operate a vehicle safely? That's kind of one of the issues we're facing, I think, going forward here with autonomous vehicles and increased driver assistance. But what do you think? Your mom or dad comes to you, they're 75, they're having troubles, you need to have the talk about whether or not they should give up their license. Would it sway your decision making? Should it sway the government's decision making if they drive a vehicle with increased driver aids? And I'll let that one kind of percolate in you a little bit. I want to move on to a separate subject here in the last half or so of this segment, at least, and I'm sure we might go on further into other segments. I want to talk about evolution. Can we talk about evolution for a few minutes here? I have a feeling it's going to spill over. I'll start off with this first story, and it's cute. Oh, there's an ad, of course, on my screen as I'm doing my show prep here. Basically, the story is that, and I don't think this comes as much as a surprise, dogs have quickly evolved a unique facial muscle to manipulate humans easier. They've evolved an extra muscle in their face to better manipulate their owners, their masters, their pet parents, on whatever scale of love you have for your animal. But that's interesting. So that's been only recent in the past. How long have dogs been domesticated? I'm going to couple thousand years, something like that. It doesn't matter if it's 10,000 years. Doesn't matter if it's 100,000 years. That is a very small blip on the evolutionary scale over the past 4.5 or so billion years that the Earth has been here, or 6,000 years, depending what you believe. So, a new muscle in a dog's face to better manipulate humans. And why is that? We've domesticated dogs. They rely on us more for food. So if they are able to manipulate our emotions easier, that means they can get food easier. They can get shelter easier. If a dog is on the street in the rain and it's fugly, are you going to let it in easier than you would a dog that was so cute and had big puppy dog eyes and its eyebrows are looking all sad and it's so wet, versus a dog that's just gnarly, snaggle-toothed, disgusting? I know. Hopefully most of you are thinking, well, I would not be biased. I would probably let the ugly dog in because the ugly dog probably needs more love. Come on, be honest. You are more drawn to cuter animals. Just like humans are more drawn to cuter babies. That's why babies are cute. They have big eyes in proportion to their skulls, and they look so cute. Otherwise, why would you want to pick up or nurture a screaming, I almost said the S word, poop crap machine? There would be no incentive for you to, if the baby's face looked like what came out in its diaper, there'd be less incentive for you to want to take care of that baby. Sarah, I promise I'm going to be a good father. She's in the room right now. Even if our baby's ugly, I promise I'll be a good daddy. She's just nodding at me. So on the evolutionary front, so dogs evolved an extra muscle to manipulate humans better. And I know this is definitely going to spill over into the next segment, and I'm going to talk about the new Nintendo Switch models also later in the show. But how is technology, as far as humans are concerned, how is technology influenced our evolution? And the reason I bring this up is because there was a story this week that adolescents and young people and young adults, there's increased cases, and I'm talking minuscule, there's only a few hundred cases of this, where there's bone spurs growing inside of some adolescents' skulls. Calcium deposits, whatever they are, extra bone growing in the skull, and they labeled them as horns. The adolescents, the children, are growing horns, and it's because of their cell phones, and they're looking down at their tablets and everything like that. While that is sensational, it still sparked an idea in me that we're definitely going to cover, because here comes the bump music. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am still your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, showing you around the museum of the mind and all of our shared and individual geek interests, because we are all geeks about something, and that makes this museum of life fascinating. I was listening to, we'll talk about evolution again in a moment, but as it sticks out in my mind, for those of you who don't know, I call screen for the Michael Berry Show during the week. And, what was I saying? Oh, he was saying that back the way he was raised, and I tend to agree with this. Back when it was a bad word, it was a bad phrase to tell your parents that you're bored. So back in the 70s and 80s and earlier than that, if you told your parents that you were bored, they would put you to work, they would do something. You didn't want to tell your parents you were bored. So my opinion on that, which I probably stated on the show before, is that in 2019, since we're all geeks about something and the world is so fascinating and the universe is so fascinating, there's really no excuse ever to be bored. You're bored? Are you really? It seems like, I know it's unintentional when people say they're bored. They don't mean it like this, but it sounds like self-righteous. It's like, I know everything in this world and universe. I'm bored by it. Rather than acknowledging that we know nothing and that is great. I also had the shower thought the other day. I'm going to go off on all these tangents before getting back to evolution, but it's all kind of related. I thought that, is there anybody who gets, let me put it this way. When you get your associate's degree or when you graduate high school, you think you know everything. I've been through 12 years, 13 years of school. I know everything there is to know now. And then you get your associate's, I still know a crap load about the world. Then you get your bachelor's. I know just enough about the world to get by. But my theory is that as you get your master's degree, and maybe Sarah can chime in because she's, later on, she is actually pursuing her master's, and somebody getting their doctorates or their PhD, I imagine the higher you go up in education, the more daunting it is to realize that you, in fact, know so little, even about your chosen field, that as Sarah goes through seminary, she might be learning as she gets her master's degree that all I've learned is that I know nothing. And I don't mean that in a bad way, my beautiful, loving wife. It's like, and maybe daunting isn't the right word, because to me, the realization that you don't know as much as you think you did is like, oh, awesome. I get to pursue this. I get to gain all that knowledge. It's so great to gain all that knowledge. But this theory, when you graduate high school, you think you know everything. When you get your PhD, you realize that you don't know anything. That your life is now devoted to the study of at least one specific subject in addition to everything else. And maybe you get maybe a doctor who gets a PhD and gets his doctorate and he's a surgeon and everything like that, or she realizes there's so little that I know about the human body now, even though you've learned so much about the human body, that there's still so much mystery there. And maybe that person who's got a doctorate, in a way, would have more respect for a car mechanic. That when the doctor looks under the hood of her BMW or whatever and just is like, this is all Greek to me, I have no idea what's going on in here. Maybe they have more respect for the mechanic who knows all that much more about cars. Just because you can sew a heart together doesn't mean you can replace the header on your, high-tech European vehicle or whatever. It's just a car. It's beneath me. Maybe you learn so much, you get so much education that you learn that it's not beneath you. Maybe it's just, you just realize and have a respect for the fact that you don't know about it. So that's why it's a shame and a misunderstanding and almost pompous to say, I'm bored. And don't read too far into that. Yes, you can be bored on a Saturday afternoon, whatever. You can feel temporarily bored. But that should spark in your mind, I'm bored. Well, there's this hobby that I was interested in when I was 16, 17 years old. I saw this guy in the park flying around an RC airplane. Maybe maybe I'm bored, I got a couple hours to kill, maybe I'll go to the hobby shop. And this would be a perfect point to plug a hobby shop if they were a sponsor of Geek Therapy Radio. If you own a hobby shop, come on. Let's go. Call up iHeart, 713-212-8000. Let's get it set up. Say you want to sponsor Geek Therapy Radio. It's perfect. So maybe you're bored on a Saturday afternoon. You have some time to kill. You remember, that remote control airplane from 20 years ago was so neat. I never really thought about it until now. Go to the hobby shop and look into RC airplanes. You find a new hobby. All I'm saying is use your boredom to spark a new hobby or a new interest. This world and universe is so vast and full of wonder that you should not be bored often. All right, back to evolution and how technology may or may not be influencing our evolution. So the story about adolescents growing horns, as the article put it, in their skulls, they were supposing that it was coming from out of the way your neck and cranium is bent to look down at smartphones. It was basically an article to get baby boomers all the more riled up about millennials. I mean, if you can't tell that these are the way articles are bent nowadays, it's stuff to get you all concerned about the generation coming up behind you. Anyways, doctors have come out and said this is absurd. This whole growing horns thing is just absurd. It's sensationalism. But nonetheless, maybe if you are craning your necks down to look at your phone ever more increasingly nowadays, people, even baby boomers, crane their necks down. They're just looking down at their smartphones. What impact, if any, is that having on our evolution? And the reason I bring that up is this. The reason humans learned to walk upright on 2 feet was so that in the savannah they could see over the tall grass, to see threats, to see predators, to see prey, to see storms on the horizon. As soon as we got able to see over the grass, we became meteorologists as well. We started studying the sky. So it was that need, that evolutionary need to get above the grass and to visualize. Also, for our eyes to come closer together so that we could start gauging depth of field. It's no good to see a lion on the horizon if it's 4 feet away or 400 yards away. So we've evolved all these adaptations to better suit our environment and increase our survivability. A few 100,000 years ago, that was the tall grass in Africa. Now, as we are craning our necks down at our phones, as we're sitting in the office chairs for, like I said, 8, 16 hours a day, whatever, sedentary lifestyles, we're staring at screens, and we don't... How is that affecting us evolutionarily? Is that a word? It is? Sarah, college girl over here, says it is a word. Have you thought about that? Are you happy that I put that into your brain to think about? Let me drop a little extra, little egg of knowledge on you. A little food for thought. I don't think smartphones are going to be around long enough on the evolutionary scale to affect our evolution. I don't think that our vertebrae are going to evolve at a different angle because of smartphones. I think smartphones are a temporary tool on the path to whatever smartphones become, implantable technology. If they implant something in your eye to replace the smartphone, you don't no longer have to crane your necks down. We are not always going to be holding a device in our hands to look down at for a long enough a period of time to affect evolution. That's my theory of it. And can you fault me? Does that sound like it's not true? I mean, computers. I just watched the movie Jobs again recently. And basically the argument was that Wozniak was saying that no one's going to want a personal computer in their house. No one's going to have a need for it. And people don't want to buy computers because the public doesn't know what it is. The public thinks a computer is the size of a room. The public thinks a computer is the size of a house. How temporary was that? That was a very temporary time in our technological evolution. How did people think that big, massive, reel-to-reel computers and punch cards were going to alter our evolution? Using terminals for data entry. It evolved into smartphones. And what are smartphones going to evolve into? The point is that the technology will evolve quicker than humans will evolve to adapt to that specific technology. That's all I'm saying. That's my theory. This idea that smartphones are affecting our human evolution is poppycock, because cell phones are not going to be around long enough on the evolutionary scale to affect it. So if you read these articles saying, the kids are growing horns and it's because smartphones, don't be stupid. Don't fall for it. Let's use our brains. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I love you. I'm not saying you're stupid. Alrighty, last segment. Time flies when you're having fun. I am certainly having fun with this episode. I think I'm... let me let you in on a little secret. By the way, if you're just joining us, it's me. I'm Johnny Hemberger, your mental curator, as always, here on Geek Therapy Radio. Thanks for stopping by. If you're new, go check out the podcast. It's 2019. The broadcast is promotion for the podcast. So go check it out. Geek Therapy Radio. Just plug it into your iHeartRadio app, plug it into Google Podcasts, plug it into iTunes, plug it into whatever podcast app you're using, but we prefer iHeartRadio app. Just type in Geek Therapy Radio. I need to, small victory. There's a separate, completely unaffiliated podcast called the Geek Therapy Network. That's not me. I I have specifically color-coded and color-schemed my stuff to be red, black, and white. Those are the colors of Geek Therapy Radio. You'll see my name there, Johnny Hembergers, all over everything. And it's also Geek Therapy Radio. It's all 3 words. It's not Geek Therapy this, Geek Therapy that, Geek Therapy Podcast. It's not that. It's Geek Therapy Radio Podcast, if it's a podcast. It's Geek Therapy Radio if it's just on the radio. It's Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube, everything. All color-coded, white, black, and red. That's my scheme. That's just marketing 101. You've also noticed that if you watch on the YouTube, I choose the same songs going in and out of videos very often because I'm using an auditory tag so you can recognize my brand. I'm tricking you all these ways, these psychological ways. I'm not tricking you. Anyways, yeah, so welcome back. I said I wanted to talk about, Beyond the Curtain, sorry, if you haven't been able to tell, I'm a nerd, I'm a geek. Geek Therapy Radio, the name therapy is just as much therapy for me as it might possibly be for you. So talking about technology influencing our evolution and all that kind of stuff, I am so privileged to be able to talk about that on the radio each week. And I understand that. I understand my privilege that I get to do that and have this amount of fun and talk about all sorts of geek stuff. Movies, comic books, if I feel like it, anything like that. We're all geeks about something. So, Nintendo. There's some big news. I don't want to say it's coming out of Nintendo because it's a leak. There's always about the new Nintendo Switch, the 2 models of suspected Nintendo Switches. There have been rumors and rumors and rumors. This is always what happens. It's just nothing new that rumors occur around Nintendo announcing new Switches coming up. People speculate, what's the new hardware going to be? And they make mock-ups and 3D renderings of what they think it is. And there's all the speculation and rumor. We've had some credible leakage. No, this is not a medical show. We have some credible leakage on the new Nintendo Switch front. And basically, there is a Chinese supplier of accessories that has opened up a page, and you can go to it, and I'll put a link to it in the podcast so you can go see for yourselves. They've put up a page with new accessories for what they say is the Switch Mini. And to bring you fully up to speed, Nintendo is bringing out 2 new Nintendo Switches. We haven't seen them yet from Nintendo, anything like that. But one of them is going to be slightly more powerful processor and all that kind of stuff, better processor, better specs. But one of them, the one I'm most excited about, is going to be a budget-friendly version, stripped-down, budget-friendly version. And that's what this website is calling the Switch Mini. We don't know what it's going to be definitely yet, but the fact that this website has already put out a page with accessories for a Switch Mini, including screen protectors, travel cases, hard shells that attach to the system itself, that lens, this is absolutely not definite, but if Nintendo releases later this year, whenever they do it, a Switch Mini, we'll have known about it now, here in June. We'll have seen it more or less, at least in mock-ups, so it's not going to be that surprising. And that's in itself not a surprise. Leaks happen all the time. Apple leaks MacBooks and all that kind of stuff, so when they reveal these things, the crowd almost is like fakes it. Oh, well, but we've seen it for months. The iPhone 4, or the 4S, remember that? That got leaked way before the launch. So they launched the iPhone 4 and people were like, oh, that's nice. We saw it for months. We saw it for weeks beforehand. So this, why do I keep saying so like that? This page, what's the website? I almost don't want to say it because it's from China. I'll link it in the podcast description, but it is a Chinese, Hansen, Honson, Hanson's own website. You've never heard of it. And frankly, before this article, I never heard of it. But Hansen is a very widely known and highly regarded supplier of tech accessories in Asia. and around the world. You can order stuff from them here in the United States. The point I'm making is they're not some fly-by-night company website that came up to perpetrate this hoax. It would be like Best Buy putting something in their catalog, new Nintendo Switch Mini cases. It's a big website. It's a big deal. So if they're already putting this kind of stuff out there, is this definitely what the new Nintendo budget model is going to be? Is this what it is? No, we don't know that for sure. But it's a very big website, and they have no incentive to lie about this. So let's assume that this new Nintendo Switch Mini is real. I'm looking at it here. Basically, all you need to know effectively is that if you know the Nintendo Switch, it has 2 detachable Joy-Cons on the side of the tablet. What the Switch Mini does is integrate all that. There's no detachable, according to this, there's no detachable Joy-Cons. It's all built into one thing. It's just a tablet with controls built into the sides of it. I think if it exists like this, that's great. I'm very excited for that. My wish, and I mentioned this in a previous episode of Geek Therapy Radio, that I wish that the new budget-minded Switch would be a clamshell design, like the 3DS in the Nintendo DS before that, a clamshell device that closes because that protects the screen by its very design, that protects controls, that's way more suited for folding up, putting in your pocket, versus this supposed iteration, which is just the screen is exposed as always. It's tough. Like the PS Vita, remember the PS Vita and the PSP? Kind of like that. The layout is perfect. Control schemes like that. The Game Boy Advance had a control scheme like that, where it's a screen in the middle, and then on the right side of this, right and left of the screen are the buttons. That was a perfect layout. 3DS, how I love it so, still cramps my hands up because the controls are. It's just. I wish it was out on the sides of the screen. It would be better, but it's not. It's to the below the screen. But I still wish the budget-minded Nintendo Switch would be a clamshell design. But as far as this Hansen website is concerned, it's going to be a smaller screen flanked by physical controls that are non-detachable. It's all built in. That's awesome in itself. That is really cool. All right, some time left here. Let's see what else we can talk about. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, yeah. Mogipic, M-O-G-I-P-I-C, has put out a voice-controlled LED display that you can put in the back of your car window to notify other drivers with your feelings. This isn't any sort of new technology. There have been things like this, little marquees you can put in the back of your car window to tell other drivers how you're feeling. So what would you tell other drivers behind you? I know what I would leave on by default. I would never change. Well, I would change it for thank you and a thumbs up or a smiley face. But the other time, it would just be set to default. Nice blinker, a-hole. Maybe not the a-hole part, but just a way more passive-aggressive. Nice blinker, ... So I would flip it between nice blinker and thank you, thumbs up. Those are the only 2 things I need. But what would you do? Would you program? I know you program a middle finger. I don't advise it. Thank you for listening to Geek Therapy Radio this week. Take care of others and yourself. Don't forget to take care of yourself. That's important too. Embrace your geek thing. Lean into your geek thing. We're all geeks about something. You are not alone. Especially here on Geek Therapy Radio. You are not alone. You always have a home here to embrace your inner geek. Until next week, take care. Be safe. Oh, get in some air conditioning.